The meeting of the Aurora City Council for Monday, July 31st is called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman.
Here.
Councilmember Bergen.
Here.
Councilmember Coombs.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
Here.
Councilmember Drinsky.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Marcano.
Present.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Murillo.
Present.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Here.
And Councilmember Zvonek.
Here.
There's a quorum.
Announcement for the call-in line.
The council welcomes feedback from the public on both matters appearing on the agenda and during public invited to be heard. If you would like to speak and have not already spoken to an operator, please press *3. For those watching on Channel 8, call 855-695-3475 and press *3 when connected. You will hear a prompt confirming you're in line to speak to an operator and then be able to continue listening to the meeting. When the operator comes on the line, please be ready to give them your name and agenda item you wish to speak on. Keep in mind you must press *3 before the city clerk reads the title of the item you wish to speak on. Finally, as a reminder, council does not allow comments about any items on the agenda during public invited to be heard. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes, and public invited to be heard is limited to 1 hour in total.
El Consejo Municipal de la Ciudad de Aurora da la bienvenida a la opinión de sus habitantes y otros vecinos en asuntos comparecientes en la agenda y durante la invitación a la audiencia. Esta sesión tiene disponible interpretación en español. Por favor, háganos saber si usted necesita este servicio. Recuerde que el Consejo no permite comentarios de la audiencia mientras se dirige a asuntos de la agenda del día. Por favor, confirme su turno y espere a la invitación para su comentario público. Gracias.
Please join me in a moment of silence for the people of Ukraine. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Executive session update. We discussed a potential contract with a nonprofit during executive session. Approval of the minutes for July 17, 2023.
Mayor, I move to approve the minutes.
It's been moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by
Zvonek.
Councilmember Sundberg to approve the minutes of July 7, 2023.
Zvonek.
Oh, I'm sorry. Correct the minutes record. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the adoption of the minutes for July 17, 2023.
Mayor Kaufman.
Mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes, can I get IT help, please?
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Sundberg.
You're doing 7B.
The motion passes to adopt the July 17th council meeting minutes.
Item number 7A, Amazing Auroran Award, Councilmember Jurinsky.
Is this on? I think it's on. Anise, will you please come down here? It's good to see you again. I put him on the spot. I told him he had to bring his family and come here tonight, and I wouldn't tell him why. So he's totally on the spot. This is Anise Egomati, a native Aurora, Coloradoan. He's 16 years old, a student at Overland High School going into his junior year. His GPA is 4.78, which has him ranked first in his class out of 539 students. He is a member of the National Honor Society and his intellect and passions have led him to found and lead 2 special societies at school, Overland High School's History Society and Overland's Film Society. He is also the founder and president of Overland's Model United Nations program. A master in debate, Anise is the president of Overland High School's speech and debate team and ranked 4th in the state of Colorado in the Lincoln-Douglas debate. Outside of school, Anise is the founder and president of a Muslim youth group and is writing a book entitled
Vinculum Vitae.
that is expected to be published in September of 2023. For his many accomplishments and leadership roles, the City of Aurora is proud to honor Anise El-Gomati as an amazing Auroran. Family, if you want to come down and take a picture, you're more than welcome to. And I just want to brag, I'm going to take a moment to brag. This 16-year-old amazing kid sent me an email, and I was under the assumption that he was emailing several of my colleagues and I with his passion to get into politics. And I met up with him, and we met at the local Qdoba over by Overland High School. He didn't know that Overland was also my alma mater. He was very excited to find out that was the case. So we met up, and I said, so what are you looking to do? And he said, well, I would love to, help on a campaign. I said, well, I'm not running for anything, but I can try to help you get onto a campaign. And again, I had the assumption that he had reached out to many of my colleagues. He knew how many, made up the city council. He knew all about us. And he said to me that he looked all of us up and he thought that I was the most unique and that I was the only council member that he reached out to for guidance. So I feel very honored, and I have him totally on the spot, but I figure, with his speech and debate, he can just put on a quick speech.
All right. Yeah, thank you. I reached out. I'm really into politics. I'm in debate. Founded my school's Model UN program, and I really just wanted to get as much experience as possible. And I was looking online, and I found a website of hers, and I saw that she started a few businesses, and I remember her saying that she didn't consider herself a politician, and I don't know why, that just intrigued me, so I decided to reach out, and I'm thankful I did. Thank you.
And lastly, I would like to say something that he taught me. We still have a lot that we can learn from today's youth. We had a wonderful conversation. When we started talking, I was a little hesitant to talk politics at all with a 16-year-old. But there was a few things he wanted to talk about. We talked about religion. We talked about politics. He was very upset. He thought he was going to buy my lunch. I wasn't having that. I, in turn, bought his lunch, in fact. But I said to him, well, where do you want to go in politics? What do you want to do in politics? And I said, well, do you even know where you politically align? And his words verbatim were, I don't have a job and I don't pay taxes, so I'm not sure I have a political affiliation yet. So with that, I wanted to introduce you all to Anise El-Gomati.
With the family picture?
Oh, do you guys want to take a photo with him? Yes.
Well, 4.7 GPA is really impressive. I didn't know it could go that high and cut that in half, and that's probably about where I was. But I guess I turned out okay. Commander Hayes and Chief Otten, if you guys would come on down. So real quick, before I read this item, June was named Firefighter Cancer Awareness and Prevention Month in the city of Aurora several years ago by then Mayor Laguerre. Due to some scheduling conflicts, we weren't able to make this happen in July, but when we read this, there'll be some references to June in here, so just want to explain that. Whereas a multi-year study by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health found a 9% increase in cancer diagnoses and a 14% increase in cancer-related deaths in firefighters when compared to the general population. And whereas exposure to fires increases chances for lung cancer, leukemia, digestive, oral, respiratory, testicular, multiple myeloma, colon, and urinary cancers, and the state of Colorado recognizes these risks for firefighters in CRS Section 8-41-209, coverage for occupational diseases contracted by firefighters. And whereas, according to that section, the death, disability, or impairment of health of a firefighter who has completed 5 or more years of employment as a firefighter caused by cancer of the brain, skin, digestive system, hematological system, or genitourinary system. See 4.7, I told you I didn't have that. And resulting from his or her employment as a firefighter shall be considered an occupational disease. And whereas the City of Aurora prioritizes the health and safety of every first responder, and awareness, prevention, and adequate resources are key to keeping Aurora firefighters healthy and safe. And whereas personal protective clothing and equipment, commonly referred to as bunker gear, play a vital role in protecting firefighters against chemical and biological hazards that increase a firefighter's risk of cancer. Now, therefore, I, Mike Kaufman, Mayor of the City of Aurora, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2023 as Firefighter Cancer Awareness and Prevention Month. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Aurora, Colorado, to be affixed on this 12th day of June 2023. So I'll hand the microphone over to Commander Hayes if you want to say a few words.
I do. Thank you very much, Council Member, Mayor, and rest of the council. Thank you all very much. It's an honor for me to be receiving this on behalf of Aurora Fire Rescue, as my chief asked for my help coming here to receive it. We do find ourselves thanking council and mayor a great deal in this. The awareness and prevention of cancer is something that affects firefighters a great deal, and the awareness and proclamations like this that gets that idea out there are super important. We've thanked the council before for some of the retrofitting of our fire stations to help negative pressure ventilation to help keep our bunker gear isolated to keep us healthier. And again, members of this council and prior had approved purchase of a second set of bunker gear for all firefighters so that those bunkers that exposed to carcinogens can be sent off for cleaning, and we still have clean bunkers. I'm pretty excited that one of the next steps in the early identification and treatment is finding these things early. One of the things that Chief Otten has directed and we're working on now is a program where we have people come in and we're trying to get set up for every firefighter and their immediate family members ultrasound screening technology to try to identify these early, because we know the early identification is the best way to beat cancers. I'm not just, in case you hadn't guessed, I'm not just a random person the chief had chose. About 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with throat cancer. I went through radiation chemotherapy, and the identification and the recognition like this is something near and dear to my heart, because I'm very glad to be here, and I really hope it helps other people to do the same. So thank you all very, very much.
Public invited to be heard.
Yes, we have Teresa Ann Haley, followed by Charles Richardson.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Teresa Haley, and it's indeed an honor to be here with you today. Basically, in my 3 minutes time that I have, the main reason why I'm here is that after meeting with some 7 students, we decided to have a statewide event. We all know in 2023, there's been more than 355 mass shootings. A mass shooter can be anywhere between the age of 18 to 72. Statistics are showing that 1 out of 4 teens have access to a gun. And one of the meetings that I was at myself, I certainly did not believe that a 13-year-old would have access to a gun. He proved me wrong. He got up, he left out of the meeting and came back with his gun. We decided that what we wanted to do after listening to these 7 children, 7 teenagers, to start a statewide event, inviting the whole entire state of Colorado to be involved. We are now working with cities, every city in the state of Colorado, to bring this event and to make it happen. It is our goal to provide alternatives to violence and bring awareness and resources to our young people. We also see that this is not just a youth issue, it's also an adult issue. We're noticing that the kids are not talking to the parents are trying to work with the kids, but they're not listening. So the reason why we're here today is, like I said, we have started a program that's called Stop the Violence, bringing families together in unity. And we're here to ask the city of Aurora to partner with us and to ask for a contribution from the city of Aurora.
Hello, I'm C.A. Shively with ABO's Marketing and ABO's Advocacy. We are the founders of the Rebuild Your Mind initiative. We're one of the most aggressive TBI and trauma initiatives in the state. Right here in Aurora, we've been working with Councilman Ruben Medina and several other through our town hall initiatives built with ABO's and Parker Stokes Mental Health Foundation. We were originally tapped to be guest speakers and coaches on the event at hand. When we found out that Ms. Teresa was actually, I don't want to say frauded, but there was definitely some foul play with her getting funding for her organization and the event, which she was going to compensate us to come out for the full day to train the kids on TBI solutions, TBI meaning traumatic brain injuries, imprints of trauma, and habilitation techniques in the community that ABO's has created, along with several other institutions that we've built. Upon finding that out, we came to help her out and to plead with Aurora and the rest of the state to help us fund this campaign as well as this event to make sure that it comes off without a hitch so that the youth can have these solutions. So that's the reason why we're here today, and we're asking Aurora to help us with $10,000 for the event if possible. Thank you for your time today.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
Charles Richardson, followed by Timothy Rohawk.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for your community service and especially all the staff here. You know, I was doing some legal research on our litigation and I came across a department history book, not union propaganda, an official department history. I'm going to read something to you. 1957, a second Seagrave pumper, Little John, was purchased. Sorry about what I'm about to say. The paid men had formed an association and affiliated with the IAFF in 1957 as Local 1290. Their organizing so incensed the mayor that he never spoke to them again. The primary goal of the association was the implementation of civil service, which was not fully adopted until 1967. Now, 66 years, I don't care how much oatmeal you all eat. Most of you, I'll be in a can, probably if I'm lucky, in a basement somewhere, but you're not going to be here. But Local 1290 will still be here in 66 years. And Local 1290 is going to fix the incredible damage that's been done by the city to the Civil Service Commission. I promise you, I'm positive. We were lied to at the beginning of the consent decree negotiations. We were told we'd have a seat at the table. We never even saw a table. We didn't even get the little pink Barbie chair. So we neither had a seat or a table. We made a good faith proposal on hiring to the city where the charter would remain intact and the departments would have the final say. rejected, out of hand, no discussion. It's the highway or the courtroom, or both, I suppose. We were lied to about being part of this process. We're not even wasting our time with the monitor any longer. We expected the monitor to say, hey, your proposal, is that it, 3 minutes? Or am I hearing things?
I think you're okay.
The monitor didn't say, you know, when you submit a proposal, hey, we have a question about aspect 4 or item number 7. We were just totally blown off. So don't get upset with 1290 if we're going to litigate this and litigate it, and if we have to, we'll go to the ballot box. Have a good evening.
Timothy Rohawk, followed by Robbie DeYoung.
Hey, I'm Tim Rohack. First of all, I guess it was a point of order. I wanted to know who directs law enforcement in Aurora, and I believe I'm in the right place. It's the mayor and the city council. Obviously, Aurora has many challenges, but none are bigger than lawlessness, drug abuse, and crime. My remarks are meant with all due respect, but I'm quite certain the mayor and the council and the police have no plan on how to take back our city. I'm in the auto recycling business, and I'm on the streets of Aurora daily, and I don't think anybody knows how bad it is. You need to come and ride in my tow truck with me for a day, and you'll see. Several officers told me today, after I had a situation in the Wells Fargo parking lot where some guys were up next to my tow truck, which I have a lot of equipment on and stuff like that, and I told them to get away from my truck, and they blew crack cocaine in my face. And I went around the corner and I found 3 officers, and they said drug sales and drug use of hard drugs is a low priority. And I believe they were directed by the powers that be that told them just leave these people alone. And being a recovering alcoholic and drug addict myself, I know that those things lead to a lot bigger crimes. And you have a state of lawlessness out there. I went to 6th Avenue to the Sinclair station, and I got $50 worth of gas, and I asked them to use the restroom because it was for customers only. She said, go out behind the car wash. And I went back there. There was piles of human waste back there, and those were directives by the employees of Sinclair. That's 10 blocks from here. Okay? And it's terrible, and I could take you for days. There are hundreds, no thousands of abandoned vehicles in Aurora. Is that your plan to deal with homelessness? Leave the cars there so they have a place to sleep? Come on, you guys, that's not a plan. I mean, that's part and parcel of your whole obligation and responsibility to the city is to have a plan to take care of some of these things. And this needs to start at the grassroots level. The economy might be our biggest problem nationally, but locally, this is a problem. And like I said, I invite anybody who wants to come. I'll put my dog in the back seat, and they can come and ride around with me. And, I don't mean this, as any type of levity or anything. This is very serious, like that woman just said about the kids with 13. I've had guns pulled. They used to say, don't screw with Rohack because he's crazy, and they'd leave me alone, and I could conduct my business. Anymore, they pull out a gun. I had officers, I told them 2 weeks ago that there were shots fired in an incident. I wouldn't track them down, and they sat there and BS'd with me and didn't go. It used to be shots fired took priority over everything. And somebody's telling these cops not to do this stuff, and I'd like to know who it is. Because it's just, and there's people paying thousands of dollars for property taxes, and they can't even park their cars in front of their houses.
If you forward me his contact information.
Robbie DeYoung,
Katie,
followed by...
I apologize. Can you send me his contact information as well?
Yes. Followed by Katie.
See y'all later.
Okay, that wasn't planned. Seriously. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Robbie DeYoung. I'm sure all of you know that. I'm with the Stolen and Vandalized Vehicles in the state of Colorado. I'll never run out of things to say about stolen vehicles. You want to know how to get more people, more businesses to move to Aurora? Bring down the crime. Bring the crime down, and you'll see people flooding in here. If they see that Aurora is making a solid effort to do things like keep women from having their handicap cart, their motorized cart stolen from them right in their front yard, do things like that. Focus on things like that. Thank you, Councilman Berger, for all you've done to try and get her back a scooter. I appreciate that. I also would like to bring up something that, doesn't really have anything to do with stolen vehicles, vandalized vehicles, and all of that. I live, and this would be under Councilman Bergman's criteria or area. I live over by Hamden and Piccadilly. And I know that there's a complex that's going to be going up there. You're going to take away one of the best places to view the city from. It's absolutely breathtaking. You go over into that little park area where the complex is going to be built, and you will see literally dozens of people parked out there just so that they can see the sunset. That's going to be taken away. And my proposal to the City Council is that although the view is a little blocked just on the other side in the conservatory, but maybe use some of the conservatory property and make a parking area for people to go and view the sunset, see our beautiful sunset that you can't hardly find a better place to do that from except maybe Dad's, the dump, and you don't want to go there to do that. But I would really appreciate some concerted effort on the council's part to try and get a parking area out there. I think it would be very nice, especially if it's done correctly. Okay, thank you.
Katie, followed by Eric Schanholzer.
Good evening, Aurora. Back to this bullshit again. Let's see, Miss Piggy, fucking up again. So this agenda that you are trying to throw at the people as far as having a volunteer police force, it's fucking stupid. Did you have a town hall on this as far as informing the people? Did you do any case studies on this situation as far as the volunteer police department? Who did you hire to do the study to come up with this dumbass analysis? And what were their qualifications? So you mean to tell me you want to hire volunteer police personnel to protect our city when we don't even have, when our paid police department still fucks up to this day? Yeah, you didn't think about that, right? Yeah, I know. And it's crazy because you called the old chief trash. Well, you're trash just like her. Do better. What else? Also, did we come up with an analysis or a finished report about Jordell, the 14-year-old young man that was murdered by Aurora police? Oh, I know the chief's here, right? Where the fuck is you at, fat ass? Where are you at? Do we have that report yet ready? Oh, we don't have it yet? kind of silent in here. Yeah. So, on that note, you guys need to do better, and also the chief of police needs to go ahead and resign. And I still mean that from the bottom of my heart, because he doesn't know what he's fucking doing. So, thank you guys for filling the city of police. I do denounce this agenda as far as having a volunteer police program, because at the end of the day, we still need to focus on the police that are still being paid, who are still fucking up the goddamn community. Focus on that first. Thank you.
Eric Shanholzer.
Well, I just want to say that I've been advised by legal counsel that I cannot interrupt the individual who's just speaking, irrespective of his vulgar language. No, you're not coming back up here.
You said what?
You're not coming back up here.
Didn't I already tell you to shove that gavel? Don't you need to shove the gavel up your ass? Because we don't give a shit about your gavel. And I hope you break the gavel. We don't give a fuck. Fuck you.
Get out of here. Okay, I can't do that.
Eric Shanholzer. And then we have one call-in line person.
It's a tough act to follow, isn't it?
So, this is the shortest 3 minutes you're going to have. I'm just here this time, hi everybody, by the way, to ask the city make a proclamation that every Monday from June 1st to September 30th shall be Take Down Your Cotton Picking Garage Sale Sign Day. Thank you.
Okay, now we have one person from the call-in line.
And I heard. Yeah, Brandy, go ahead.
Yes.
You have 3 minutes.
Yes. Great, thank you. My name is Brandy Marie Majors, currently running for City Council at large in Aurora. Give that young brother a round of applause. He is actually telling the truth, speaking truth to power. Give that man a round of applause. You do need to focus on the racist activities that are going on in the police department currently. Yes, the chief should resign. He's not about the black community at all. We don't support anybody who is black in Aurora, including myself. Don't let the shade deflect the message. We do not support photo ops when someone dies and you go over there and you just shoot your photo ops and you don't care nothing about their family. Now, the police are worried about their morale. Well, what about the morale of the families, that the people that they hurt? Let's talk about that for a little bit. I'm running for city council at large. You have been put on notice. It is a major shakeup. I feel that this is first of all, your systems here calling to make comments and not be able to direct anything to the actual people is an atrocity in itself. I plan on changing that whole direction right there. Also, too, I would like to speak with my city council member, Miss Murillo, if she can. My email is brandylok13@gmail.com. We spoke before many moons ago. I have a situation that requires your attention since you are Ward 1. It's nothing terrible, something that I feel adequately you can handle. Jurinsky, how are you going to do a study session with the police last week or something and not actually go do your due diligence, but use profanity and refer to everybody as they can get the F out of there, or whatever you said, which is just completely wrong for a woman of such levels of supremacy. It's just radiating. And it just, let me just point this out right here. The whole city council, minus maybe 2 people, and that's with insider baseball. I got 3 minutes. Hold your thoughts. 3 minutes. The whole city council is riddled with white supremacy and racism. When you don't care about your people in these areas, your most vulnerable people, which is black people, okay, you are doing the city of Aurora a major disservice. I also feel that the streets are out of control. with the way the traffic is. You're not the police are there just to profile and stop. Okay, profile and stop. I live in Ward 1. I'm outside. None of you people go outside.
Randy, your time is up.
So none of you know what's going on. Excuse me, I had 3 minutes, ma'am.
Your 3 minutes is up.
Who are you to interrupt? No, it isn't. I'm looking at the timer right now. 3 minutes. Now, I'm going to say that the things need to change. All you're doing is causing.
Can you just cut her off? Okay.
That was the last individual.
Land acknowledgement. The City of Aurora acknowledges that we gather on the territories and ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Ute, Arapaho, and Lakota peoples, past and present. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. Indigenous peoples have remained committed to the stewardship of the land over many centuries. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties that these nations have to their traditional homelands and to their vital place in the ecosystem are renewed and reaffirmed, and we are called upon to be better stewards of the land we inhabit, and as we continue to work to meet the needs of our entire community. Adoption of the agenda. Motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to approve the agenda.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by
Sundberg.
Councilmember Sundberg to approve the agenda. Discussion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of the agenda. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman,
Mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sundberg. The motion passes to adopt the agenda.
A motion to approve the consent calendar for motions, item number 10A1 to 10A10.
Mayor, motion to approve 10A1 through 10A10.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by
Bergen.
Councilmember Bergen to approve the consent calendar motions, item number 10A1 to 10A10. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the adoption of the consent calendar, item number 10A1 to 10A10.
Mayor Kaufman,
Mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
the motion passes to adopt the consent calendar for motions.
Adoption of the consent calendar, resolutions and ordinances, items 11A1 to 11B2.
Mayor, I apologize. We do have a speaker that wants to speak on item 11A6, Eric Shanholzer.
Do we have to read the title?
For item 11A6?
Yeah. Okay. Will the clerk please read the title of item number 10A7? I'm sorry, 11A6.
11A6?
Okay. So,
The clerk's going to read the title first.
okay. 11A6 is Resolution 2023-83, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support for the city to follow the turf lawn irrigation restrictions that large irrigation customers must follow.
I had it here. I expected you guys to spend more time on 10s. So, watering, not for or against. There are two forces at play here, reality and perception. Y'all have to deal with reality, right? You got to deal with the legality of stuff. I'm here to remind you that perception might be more important. In reality, this resolution is probably the best way to do it legally. Go through the large irrigation thing. Now, I was looking through the packet, and there are 3 different resolutions in there. Page 254, 267, and 271. 2 of them are saying that it's the residential. One of them is saying that it's the large irrigation rules that you guys are going to do. But what the public perceives and what we have no way of actually knowing, because there's no way to see what the irrigation rules are without a lot of digging, what we see is the sprinklers running at noon on the grass medians, on chambers. We remember reading that we got a little thing from the water board saying if we did that, we would be subject to punishment. That's the perception. So, speaking for all the folks behind me in Aurora and on Channel 8 there, I hope this resolution fixes this particular do as we say, not as we do, bit of nonsense perpetuated by the city of Aurora. All right, thanks.
Yep, that was the only person.
Do we have a motion? Or?
No.
Okay.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve 11A1 through 11B2, and I'd like to pull 11A7.
Further motions?
Second.
Further motions?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. I'd also like to pull 11A6 to have Marshall Brown give an explanation of what might be happening with water.
Further? Then the question before us is the adoption of the consent calendar for resolutions and ordinances 11A1 to 11A5. And then 11A6 and 11A7 are taken out. Motion?
It also included 11B1 and B2.
11B1.
And B2.
And B2.
I'm sorry. 11B1.
Mayor Pro Tem, are you okay with the motion to approve the consent calendar for resolutions and ordinances with item 11A6 and A7 removed?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And then
Okay.
do we have a second for that one?
I had the second.
Councilmember Bergen, thank you.
Okay. Then the motion before us is the adoption of the consent calendar, item number 11A1 to item number 11A5. Motion?
Mayor, this would be the entire consent calendar for resolutions and ordinances without 11A6 and 11A7. We'll do those two separately.
Well, 11A, also 11B1 and 11B2, correct?
Mayor, it's been moved and seconded.
Okay. Okay. Did we get a first and second? Did we get a? Okay, then discussion. Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the adoption of the consent calendar as amended.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
And Councilmember Drinsky? Thank you. The motion passes to adopt the consent calendar for resolutions and ordinances with items 11A6 and 11A7 removed.
Will the clerk please read the title to 11A6?
11A6 is Resolution 2023-83, expressing the Aurora City Council support for the city to follow the turf lawn irrigation restrictions that large irrigation customers must follow.
Motion?
Well, Mayor, motion to approve item 11A6.
Okay. Okay. Motion is in order on the adoption of item 11A6. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's have a brief presentation by staff.
11A6.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. The proposed resolution before you would shift the City of Aurora properties into the large irrigation variance program that would include the calculation of appropriate volumes of water. We create allowances based on evapotranspiration rates and the vegetation. We then work with the customers to allocate volumes of water that they can use throughout the week. And we then track, monitor, and communicate with the customer on how they're doing with that usage. The variance program also includes consequences. Those who exceed the calculated allowance have to create essentially an action plan or a water conservation plan that demonstrates how they will get back within the usage allowance. If they cannot get within the usage allowance, it reverts them back to essentially the residential watering restrictions of 3 days a week, no watering between 10 and 6. I will also note that the variance program also prohibits watering between 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., so it does address that concern, and again, increases the level of attention and management associated with water use on city properties.
Questions of staff?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. So we heard earlier from one of our commenters that they were seeing city property, I guess, with sprinklers going off at noon. Are there any properties that don't have smart systems in place yet? And are there areas where that is in fact happening?
Councilman Marcano, my understanding is we do have a few properties that do not have smart irrigation systems installed yet, and we are working to get those installed. And we also contract out management of certain properties to contractors that manage systems for us. We've had some problems that I'm aware of where some of those systems have gone on in the middle of the day, and so we are also working to address that and get all of our systems through this program plugged into the variance program, where there's an additional set of eyes on what's going on with the properties to ensure that those mistakes are at least minimized, if not eliminated.
Further questions or comments? Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. And I've also witnessed the Arapahoe County building across the street, their sprinklers going off in the middle of rainstorms. I think I brought that to y'all's attention. I'm just curious, have we reached out to them yet to see if we can get that corrected?
My understanding is yes. I'll have to verify. I'll make a note to double check and get back with you on that specific property. We have reached out to numerous properties this year, probably more so than any other year, about irrigating during rain events. Technically, there's no ordinance that prohibits watering during a rain event, even though it makes no sense at all. What we have to reach out to them on is runoff into the street or onto hard surfaces associated with that irrigation. So I'll double check and make sure we followed up with the Arapahoe County building.
Thank you, sir.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes. So when we're doing the outreach to the different users that have to follow the variance program, I believe you mentioned, Marshall, that we're also doing outreach to all the metro districts as well, so they understand the conservation needs.
Yes, we are increasing communications with large irrigation users, other irrigation users that are a little smaller that come to our attention to try to get everybody's systems upgraded. We're also working to get smart irrigation systems installed for single-family residential uses, commercial uses. Our rebate program is very generous associated with those smart irrigation controllers, and we're working cooperatively with some of council to ramp up, again, get some of those systems more available to our customers so that they're, again, more aware of what we offer.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
Mayor.
Councilmember Jorinsky.
Yeah, so I just realized that the way that it is worded in, on our agenda is correct. To follow the lawn irrigation restrictions that large irrigation customers must follow. But, and I don't know why we keep having issues and why both versions are still in our backup, but in the backup it says, the second version I'm assuming is what they brought forward. It says the residential rules. No, because the first ordinance includes the Great Lawn. Okay. So can we clarify, are we talking about the residential restrictions that we're going to follow, or are we talking about what it says on the agenda, large irrigation customers must follow?
There are 3 resolutions on the agenda. So on study session last week, it had the wrong resolution. Yeah. So was the one where there was a discussion about the Great Lawn. What should have been considered at study session is a second resolution about residential water requirements, which is what council should have seen last week. But what you are voting on tonight is the lawn irrigation requirements, allowing the city to use the same variance program as large irrigation customers of Aurora Water.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted that clarification.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, thank you. Are schools part of this variance?
I would have, the variance program is actually associated with specific meters, so I can't say that the school districts holistically are part of the variance program. I believe we have some meters associated with individual properties in the variance program. So the school districts specifically are customers that we have identified that we need to ramp up discussions with and try to figure out how to get them better integrated into the program.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw the one on the Anschutz campus there on the Parkway at about noon with water going off on a hot, hot day.
Further discussion? Questions of staff? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to approve item 11A6.
Moved by Councilmember Jurenski, seconded by
Coombs.
Councilmember Coombs. Discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on the adoption of 11A6.
Councilmember Murillo? Yes. The motion passes to adopt item 11A6.
Would the clerk now please read the title to 11A7?
Item 11A7 is Resolution 2023-84, supporting the appropriation of general fund revenues to develop an economic development plan.
I brought this forward because I think it's so important for the City Council to have a vision, an economic vision of where this city needs to go. We have a landmass larger than Denver with a third of it undeveloped. And this is our responsibility. It cannot be outsourced. I think developers play a very important role in our city. And they take tremendous risk. And they help us grow. But our job here as elected officials is to work with them, not for them. They should not be deciding the fate of our city. With that, a motion is in order. I move 11A7.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Bergen.
I believe in the past we've always asked for a fiscal note. I'm looking at the backup, and it has not even on the fiscal impact, doesn't even have revenue impact, but yet the resolution asks for monies.
Let me refer to the interim city manager.
So one of the things we would need to do is put this out for an RFP and see what it is. We've tentatively looked at this. We think it's $150,000 for the scope of that's being envisioned, and at this point, the recommendation would be to take that out of the general fund balance.
Councilmember Bergen.
So shouldn't we, so we're voting on possibly getting an RFP?
Yeah, I think the resolution is in support of moving forward in the next step, I think is the way the mayor drafted it, right?
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. So I'm confused to see this back on the agenda because when we discussed this at our last workshop, there was actually a lot of agreement I felt on like a general strategy and approach, with some of us wanting to request some changes to the vision, but when you didn't have the votes at that meeting, you kind of got very upset and then just declared that I guess we're not going to have an economic development strategy. And that was the last we heard of this. I thought there was supposed to be follow-up on this. To the best of my knowledge, that hasn't happened. If y'all have had these discussions, please, any of my colleagues speak up. And frankly, this resolution here is not substantive. As was mentioned already, it's lacking a fiscal note. So I don't see what we're discussing here. This just seems to be words on a piece of paper with no actual meaning or strategy or intent.
I think it's important to have a recorded vote on this issue. I know what the fate is of this. I know there's outside pressure on this council. So further discussion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
So I guess just to reiterate the question, specifically, there was a conversation that you were going to exercise the leadership to work with your council to get the votes, and you didn't do that. That's why the fate of it is what it is. You knew you weren't going to have the votes because you didn't even try to get the votes because you have not said anything to us about what you're going to do and what you want to do. We all agreed at the workshop, we want to have an economic development strategy. And the conversation was, okay, this is going to come back to council. We're going to have the discussions. We're going to get the feedback and the information. And we're going to put together something that can get at least 6 votes. And that didn't happen. That's why you continue to not have 6 votes, because you didn't do the work.
Mayor.
Councilmember Gardner. Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
Yeah. So a couple things. As we established at our workshop, we already have an outlined economic development strategy in Aurora Places document. You might not like what it says, and it might need to look a little bit more robust, but we had a long discussion about this and came to a consensus that I know you didn't like, but most of the rest of council did like it, and I'm just not quite sure why the exact same thing that has no detail on it, including no fiscal note, which you sponsored the item saying that there needed to be a fiscal note when something is brought forward, and this doesn't have a fiscal note. So I'm not sure how we can even vote on it, because you said you wanted us to know the cost before we vote on something, and we don't know what the costs are going to be on this.
Well, I just want to say, and I'm disappointed with staff for not giving a specific no more than figure, but I'll take responsibility for that. So I will pull this and delay it for 2 weeks. Be happy to have those discussions and bring it back. I don't think it's going to change the outcome one bit. It's going to fail. And it's going to fail because the outside pressures on the city council that don't want the city to have its own economic vision as to what it can be. But it will come back in 2 weeks. You'll have an opportunity to vote on it. Anybody who wants to discuss it with me will have an opportunity to discuss it with me. I'm more than happy to look at amendments to it, but there will be a vote, and you will be held accountable. With that, it will be delayed for 2 weeks.
Mayor?
Mayor, Councilmember Bergen.
So if you bring it back in 2 weeks, will we have not only a fiscal note, but an actual, description of what that looks like? I mean, there's no backup, there's no
I'm more than happy to,
Sorry.
I'm more than happy to have discussions with any member here that has recommendations that are not simply to kill it, as probably will be its fate, but that enhance it, that make it better. More than happy to listen to that. But it is our responsibility to have a vision, an economic vision for this city, and not to outsource it to anybody else.
Mayor.
With that, it will be on the agenda 2 weeks from now.
Mayor, Katie, for some clarification, do you want this on the next council meeting? Is that the one in 2 weeks, or a study session?
The next council meeting.
Okay, so August 14th.
Yes.
And then clarification from City Attorney's Office, he needs a second for this? For his motion to continue the item, he will need a second. Is that correct?
Continue it to a specific date. Yes.
Okay, what date is it? Is it 14th or?
August 14th.
Oh, okay, it is delayed till August 14th.
Okay, and then we need a second and a vote.
I'm sorry? Is that a motion that requires a second?
It's a motion, Mayor. You need a
Okay,
second.
is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Very well, thank you. It doesn't require a vote. Oh, it does? Okay. Discussion? Is there objection? Well, no. Sorry. Who's that?
Mayor, I wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, Councilmember Lawson.
So I know we don't have the fiscal note, which you didn't have that in there, but just specifically looking at this resolution, especially in paragraph 7, the whereas, when you state that all of these particular, these organizations should be all working in one direction to attract businesses. I understand the bigger concept of it, but each organization has a different perspective, a different way that they are bringing in business and looking at economic development. So to say that they all need to be in one direction, I mean, that's totally something that you just can't, it can't be possible.
It's called a vision, and I think it's possible.
Well, I disagree.
Mayor.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Jaworski.
Yeah, for me, I just think that, I think that investing in a study, I mean, you are the mayor of this city, and you obviously have something in your mind, like a vision that you would want to see, and you obviously want to have your input on that. So I just don't understand what the need is for a study. Why not call a meeting with the key players in Aurora economic development in this city. I mean, 2 of them are here tonight together, and I know that they have plans to start meeting regularly. So why not just all get together and everybody share their ideas and what they're working on? I think that the city internally can come up with a master plan and a vision. I don't think there's any need for a study at all.
Well, and I know you argued against it in study session, but that it's important to have an objective analysis as to what the city is capable of. Is our destiny to be, the warehouse capital of the world and a dumping ground for low-wage jobs? I was just up in northeast part of the city trying to work on a problem where we have so many semis with tractor trailers that have no place to park because we've built so many distribution centers without planning for the need for, quite frankly, we're going to have to do some massive truck stops because they're under federal regulations where after so many hours, they have to stop. They have to stop. And if you go up, I think it's a Flying J, is that what it's called? Flying J? Is that 30th? And, there are, where you have an overnight place for semis and their tractor trailers to stay that's always full. And there are all these vehicles illegally parked around there because there's nowhere for them to go. And so what staff is scrambling now is to check with property owners to see if they would be willing to have a truck stop that would have overnight parking. I mean, that's not good planning. That's not having a vision of what we're capable of being. And so I'm more than willing to have conversations, but I understand what the fate of this is at the end of the day.
Mayor?
Mayor.
Councilmember Sundberg.
A couple questions and a comment. How long is a study like this expected to take?
When we previously looked at this before the winter workshop, I think we thought it was probably in a 9-month range to get them engaged, to do the robust discussions that council was looking for, and then do a couple of check-ins. So I think we were thinking it was realistically a 9-month.
Less than a year?
Yes.
Okay. I do agree with you, Mayor, that we should have a compass, a direction, a map of where to go. Things have changed since the Places study has come out, and we put a lot of trust into some great organizations and entities that help drive industry and visitors and commerce to our city. So I empathize that we need a plan, and we're just putting a lot of trust into these organizations, which I think are excellent and trustworthy. But I think it behooves perhaps these organizations, I think they might be happy, and I have great relationships with the Chamber of Commerce for 30 years. And I'm happy for the new leadership, and God bless Kevin Hogan and his service. And I'm glad that entities are starting to come together and talk and communicate more that are so important to our city. This dialogue has been needed. So I think it does behoove these organizations also to come forward and say, hey, here's what we see as a big picture where we want our city to go. How about even a pie graph? We want this much entertainment to come to Aurora. We don't even have a walkable downtown neighborhood. Our city is disjointed geographically in certain ways. And we do have an incredible opportunity to grow this city in the right manners. So it's not fair just to shoot the mayor down, right? Okay, this didn't work for you and we're happy, we're gonna leave. But it might behoove these great organizations to put a little one-pager together about where they want this city to go.
Well,
Mayor.
Let me just say something first. We would be voting. So you do an objective third-party economic analysis, but ultimately it still comes back to the city council, and certainly city council, members of the city council and we can get input at that point from all of our economic partners. That's what Colorado Springs does, and they're incredibly successful. And all of their partners align to that economic development plan. And so anybody who wants to meet with me to discuss this in 2 weeks, I'll be happy to. But at the end of the day, if it's voted down here, it's voted down here. And again, The responsibility to have a vision is ours. This is city without a vision and without an economic vision.
Mayor,
And it
Mayor.
shows. It absolutely shows. And if you don't believe, I'll take you up to and show you what it looks like for a hotel owner just contacted me who has all these trucks parked in front of his hotel. And it puts us in a difficult position because we didn't plan for it. So we have nowhere to put these trucks. Councilmember Bergen.
So I actually did have a conversation with you, Mayor. It's been months and months ago. It was probably shortly after the workshop, but the idea was to try to put together a forum that we would have the different partners come together with council and look at possibly a, unifying vision, and then maybe go to a study from that point. So, would you be willing to do that versus bringing this back to study session without having that discussion first and that kind of that collaboration?
We need a study first to see what we're capable of as a city in terms of this economy. And then I think let's hear from our partners, but let's have an objective analysis first that's free of undue influence.
Mayor.
And I don't know why this is delayed, and I don't know why we're having this discussion right now for something that's going to be discussed 2 weeks. Well, I've already told you that I'll be willing to sit down with any member who wants to sit down.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. So part of the reason we're still having this discussion is because you said you were going to bring this back. What this is devoid of any kind of detail. Now, you're asking us to bring you ideas, and that's great, but I think we should be having this conversation as a body. I would love to discuss maybe hiring Urban 3 as a firm to do what you're discussing here, to do an evaluation of the city's potential, untapped potential, how we're squandering our current potential, et cetera. We can work with our existing economic development partners. I'm sure they would love to see what these folks can put together. But what you're saying is you're just going to bring back this. And there's nothing here to discuss.
Nobody said that.
So
Nobody said that. I said I will have conversations with members
Also, point of order, sir, you're interrupting me.
And then I will bring it forward in 2 weeks.
Mayor, point of order.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Murillo, I'm sorry. Councilmember Murillo.
Can you not interrupt your colleagues? Thank you.
I can't understand.
Yeah, let me finish the point.
I'm sorry.
So the point is that what you asked us to do and what you have, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone else who's listening here, you were going to bring this back in 2 weeks. This isn't anything. Like I said, this is words on a piece of paper with no substance. So if we want to take the time to actually put something back together and then have a bigger discussion about it, maybe identify some folks who can help us do some of this analysis that you're discussing, bring our existing partners in while we have that conversation, that I think might get some legs. But bringing this exactly back, I don't think is going to go anywhere.
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
So once I'm done, I do believe Councilmember Murillo had been trying to speak for a while. But so I just want to clarify what you mean by you're willing to sit down with anyone, that if people ask you for an appointment that takes 60 minutes, you would take that appointment to really flesh out a full detailed plan?
I think we can manage our time better than that and do 30 minutes.
But if it took longer than 30 minutes, would you be willing
Sure.
to have conversations longer than 30 minutes with your colleagues?
I've got a pretty tough schedule, but I'm willing to make time for anybody who wants to talk to me, and I'm willing to consider amendments, as long as we never compromise the responsibility of this council to have a vision for the city, and that vision cannot be outsourced to other entities. And then if it's voted down, it's voted down. But I'm not going to water it down. But I'm willing to listen to constructive recommendations. Further questions or comments on, we're going to be discussing this, voting on this in 2 weeks, but I'm more than happy to have conversations with any member between now and the vote. Very well. Okay, so we don't.
Mayor, Councilmember Murillo.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thanks, Mayor. So just for clarification, when was the date we first discussed this study?
Well, I think we've had quite a few discussions on this particular issue. I think we've had a study session on it before. We've had
Okay, what was the date?
I don't know, Saturday workshop, was it the last workshop that we have? I can get you those
Several months
dates.
ago, October.
I believe so, but it came up long before that, for the first time.
Okay, so I guess I find it hard to believe that since October, there's been the opportunity to have conversations, to connect with colleagues, to accept amendments, to take meetings, 30 minutes, 60-minute meetings, and that didn't happen. So now suddenly that's supposed to happen within 2 weeks when it takes a lot longer that we have to account for the amount of time it takes to get things on the agenda. So really, we're not even talking 2 weeks to discuss potential amendments and then draft the amendment. So I just am really hard pressed to believe that if those discussions, robust discussions, and what you say you mean, didn't happen in the last several months, didn't already happen, how is that going to happen in the next 2 weeks? So I don't think this is going to substantively change. I'm frustrated that we're back in this position where we're grandstanding and haven't actually taken action to have real discussions with our community partners or even colleagues on an economic development strategy. That's all.
Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Morgan.
I appreciate you wanting to meet with us, and I think that's a good idea. I don't think the 2 weeks is enough time. I'd have to concur with Councilmember Murillo that we would need a little bit longer time.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, what I'll do is I'll look at what progress we're making, if we're making progress, or if people are just giving me excuses because of the outside pressure not to vote for any vision for this city. And so if, in fact, it is productive, then I'll extend it out.
Why don't we do a motion to table instead of a motion to
Okay. I put forward a motion to table as a substitute. Seconded by Councilmember Zvonek. Is there, discussion on motion to table? Seeing none, call for the question on the motion to table.
Mayor, Councilmember Murillo.
Councilmember Murillo, I'm sorry.
Can you elaborate on what these outside pressures are that don't want us to have an economic development strategy?
I think that there are developers, commercial developers, who, first of all, I have tremendous respect for what they do. But they profit by what is in the near term and not what is in the long term. And so I think that there is opposition based on the fact that the contours of a vision, of an economic vision, may in fact compromise their ability to profit in the short run if it doesn't comport with the plan. And so that's certainly my view. Councilmember Murillo.
Can you specifically name which developers?
No, I'm not going to do that. It's commercial developers in general, and I have tremendous respect for what they do, but we don't work for them. We should be working with them. Further discussion?
But Mayor, can I speak?
Councilmember Lawson.
So when you stated that, all you're seeing is kind of manufacturing. We have data centers, we have aerospace, we have manufacturing. Not only that, we have different types of other things, but you're just kind of spinning in this that it's just manufacturing. And that's not true. We have different, diverse businesses that have been brought before by economic development, by ADC, by other organizations. So I guess you're kind of spinning this that we're just having manufacturing, but we do have other types of companies.
No, I said distribution seems to be a primary focus right now.
But that's
not manufacturing. But
distribution, manufacturing, Mayor.
So, look. At the end of the day, I don't think this is going to pass if I live with you all for the next year. It's not going to make a difference. But I'm going to try, okay? I'm going to try. And so I get the pressures that are out there. I get it. And I just want a recorded vote. At the end of the day, what I want is a recorded vote. I will work with all of you. Anybody who wants to meet with me, I will meet with you. Okay? Further discussion. Seeing none, call for the question on the motion to table.
Okay, never mind.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilmember Zvonek.
Yes.
Councilmember Medina.
They didn't get our.
I said no.
The motion passes to table the item with 8 yes votes, 3 no votes from Mayor Pro Tem Gardner, Councilmember Drinsky, and Councilmember Medina.
Now, please read the title to 11B1,
Mayor, on 12A.
or 12A.
Item 12A is ordinance 2023-34, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, rezoning a parcel of land measuring 31.28 acres, more or less, located within sub-area C along Stephen D. Hogan Parkway and west of Piccadilly Road, City of Aurora, County of Adams, State of Colorado, from mixed-use regional district to mixed-use corridor district, and amending the zoning map accordingly.
Public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ariana Muka, and I am presenting for staff for tonight. Tonight, for your review, is an application, a zoning map amendment. The zoning map has been recommended for approval by Planning Commission. The applicant is Equity Ventures, LLC, and they are requesting the approval to rezone the property from MUR to MUC. Here is a map showing the parcel's location. It's outlined in dashed white. It's at the southwest intersection of Stephen D. Hogan Parkway and Piccadilly Road. The site is surrounded by the Aurora 1 Master Plan, residential, and parks and open space. Our comprehensive plan has this designated as a commercial hub place type. And within the Aurora Places comprehensive plan, the commercial hub is intended to be in the areas that support adjacent neighborhoods with shopping, services, and entertainment. The listed primary land uses for this place type are restaurants, high-density residential, commercial retail, and commercial services. All of these uses are allowed in the MUC mixed-use corridor zone. The proposed zoning map amendment is requested to bring the parcel under one zoning type. The site is currently divided into 2, and it will bring everything under MUC. So right now it is zoned MUR and MUC. MUR is mixed-use regional, and after this zoning map amendment, it'll be all under one. This will create a consistent zoning across the Eagle Ridge Master Plan, which is recommended so that the planning areas and proposed uses would be regulated under one concurrent zone district. If the existing MUR zoning remained, several sites and parcel areas would be split by differing zone districts, and that could create some potential conflicts. This is the conceptual parcel layout displaying parcels 1 through 6 of Eagle Ridge Master Plan. The anticipated land uses range from parks and open space to commercial, multifamily residential. These uses are in review as part of the Eagle Ridge Master Plan application, and it has been approved by administrative decision. The proposed rezoning would again allow for consistent zoning across the site. Eagle Ridge Master Plan is in close proximity to Aurora 1 in the east, which is a large-scale MUR district and is supported by a different place type designation. Aurora 1 is urban district. And with that, staff would like to ask, does the City Council wish to approve the zoning map amendment from MUR district to MUC district?
Is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yes.
Good evening, and my name is Alicia Kai, and I am here representing the developer, JV developer of this Eagle Ridge project, and the staff already did the presentation for the zone change, so I'm just going to do a brief summary of the JV developers and also the project. So the project is about 40-acre site, and we are proposing a commercial and affordable residential projects in our Eagle Ridge project. And currently, it's 2 different zones. To be consistent, we are seeking to change the zone from existing MUR to MUC of the site. So the JV, our EVC Ward Development Group, EVC, Equity Venture and Ward Development Groups, our JV partners are the major developer of this Eagle Ridge project, and both EVC and WDGs, we are the Class A commercial developers for the commercial developer, and we both, EVC and WDG, we have in-house resources to provide a one-stop commercial development. WDG, we developed over 100 projects throughout the United States, and this is not the first JV projects that we did. We have done several different commercial projects in Colorado, and successfully we did that. So next is, so the staff already presented that. Our projects consists of 2 zone, MUC and MUR, and to be consistent, we are seeking the existing MUR to MUC, and we have different planning area, and major planning areas, the developments will be commercial, and one of the components, actually the anchor development of our Eagle Ridge project is the affordable housing project, and with that, we partner up with our partner team, Overland Property Groups, and I would like to hand this over to Ryan Zent.
Good evening, Council. Ryan Zent with Overland Property Group, and I am an Aurora resident, so this is actually extremely exciting for me to be up here as both an applicant and a resident. So I thank you all for everything you do. And so as staff I know has shown you, this land is being zoned to be one consistent zoning. We've worked very collaboratively with staff throughout the last few months to really make sure that we're doing this the right way. Overland Property Group is actually developing just the multifamily portion of this, and we've been in partnership with Wall and Wall and EVC for several months to really start this process. The development will help to enable that consistent zoning across basically the parcel that will be the multifamily parcel, which will allow for 192 units of multifamily housing, which will be predominantly affordable housing. This project has already been awarded federal and state tax credits for the development of the multifamily affordable housing, as well as a significant investment through the Community Investment Housing Finance Round. So I thank you all for your support of this and hope to hear any feedback and answer any questions.
Is there anyone who wishes to be heard
No.
on this? With that, public hearing is closed. And questions of staff or the applicant? Other questions? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to approve 13A.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by
Sundberg.
Councilmember Sundberg, to approve item number 12A. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 12A. Call for the question.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
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 The motion passes to adopt item 12A, ordinance 2023-34.
Will clerk now please read the title of item number 12B?
Item 12B is Resolution 2023-85, a public hearing and consideration of a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support of revisions to Exhibits A and D of the Axis Exploration LLC Operator Agreement.
Public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jeffrey Moore. I'm the manager of the Energy and Environment Division for the City of Aurora.
Thank you for the time this evening. The item is consideration for an update amendment to Exhibits A and D of the operator agreement with Access Exploration. Exhibit A is the map that shows the well sites. Exhibit D is just a table that shows those same well sites. I'll give a brief overview, and then I'll introduce the applicant to provide some additional details. All the notices for this public hearing have been properly filed. The background, the operator agreement was signed with Access Exploration in July of 2019. It vested 4 well sites with a total of 80 wells, proposed wells. None of those well sites or wells have been constructed to date. The operator agreement does allow revisions to the wells and well sites after a public hearing at City Council. The changes that are being requested are within the same geographical area and targeting the same minerals as described by the sites in the operator agreement. The map that's on the screen shows the general location. You'll see 64th Avenue and the intersection of Highway E470. The 4 sites that are shown in yellow are the 4 that were originally approved in the operator agreement with Access Exploration from left to right. They are the High Point site, the Hammer, the ACP East, and ACP West. The applicant is requesting to remove 2 of those sites from consideration. The Hammer site would be removed, and the ACP East will essentially be shifted to the north and become the Deuce site. We're changing the name on that to avoid any confusion with the previously approved site. There was a question by Councilmember Coombs at study session on the development term. The operator agreement includes a development term ending December 31st of 2024. The operator agreement allows the operator to request an extension of that term. It is subject to council approval. The request that they are putting forth tonight is the request for an extension of the term for 1 new site. If we look at that on a timeline, the original operating agreement provided 5.5 years for development from July 2019 to December of 2024. Of course, we're 4 years into that time frame now, so they're requesting 1 site for an additional 3 years beginning now through August of 2026. That extends the total time by an additional 1.5 years for that 1 site. The other 2 sites that would remain in the operator agreement would remain with the development term ending December 31st of 2024. Our division has fully reviewed this. We are supportive of the request. We've confirmed support by the surface owner as well as unanimous support by the Oil and Gas Advisory Committee. There are some benefits to the proposed changes. Reduction of total surface impact of oil and gas within the city. It cancels a site that was adjacent to a floodplain and would have been less than 2,000 feet from future residences and the Wendler Homestead. It also cancels a site that was scheduled to be west of E470 and ultimately provides greater protection for public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Dan Harrington of Civitas Resources to provide some additional details.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members, and thank you to the Energy and Environment Division for working with us on this proposal. My name is Dan Harrington. I'm the Asset Development Lead for this area for Civitas Resources. Access Exploration is a wholly owned subsidiary of Civitas. We're proposing here to add 1 new well site to the Access Aurora Operator Agreement. That well site will be proposed with 18 wells, and it will replace 2 well sites originally approved for a total of 40 wells. So the net effect in the operator agreement will be 1 fewer site and 22 fewer wells. That new well site is requested via the future well site mechanism of the operator agreement. It was written in such a way to allow the addition of well sites. The addition of this site will be considered change to Exhibits A and D of the operator agreement without any changes to the contractual language of the agreement itself. Well sites are normally added with a set of kind of default characteristics, and there are 2 exceptions here. One is we've agreed to a shortened time frame, 3 years relative to 5, to construct and spud the wells. And also, we're requesting an exemption to the requirement for produced water takeaway via pipeline. And that's reflecting the reality of the lack of commercial water disposal facilities or the ability to permit or construct them in the city. We would haul away produced water via truck, which is consistent with our other operations in the area. This is an overview of the area where the Axis OA sites are located. We're south of DIA and east of Pena, mostly east of E470. You can see the old sites in color and the new Deuce site called out there. As Mr. Moore mentioned, the Deuce site is best thought of as a relocation of the original ACPE site with some significant advantages. We're shifting it about 1/3 of a mile northward. That will allow us dramatically improve setback from nearby Second Creek. The ACPE was only 80 feet from that creek, and we're upwards of 950 now. We'll also be farther from the future planned development south of 56th Avenue. Longer lateral lengths, we now drill up to 4 miles, will allow for development of a larger area from a smaller surface footprint, and that's why we're eliminating the other western site. We have designed this site in extensive consultation with the surface owner, and it does fit with their surface development plans in the area. These are what the updated exhibits A and D would look like if this are approved. As you can see, the 2 sites are eliminated. We've added 1, and then the table reflects the new sites and the timing. Lastly, there are a number of legacy non-Civitas wells in the area that can benefit from evaluation for re-entry and potential replugging. There are 18 within the area of the Deuce pad. We've already replugged, we replugged 2 when these slides were made. We've actually done 2 more since then, so the first 4 on that list are done. And we're committing here to either replug or at least evaluate those wells as part of this development. Thank you.
Mayor?
Oh. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this issue?
No.
Very well. Public hearing is closed. Question of staff or the applicant.
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
So I guess to put a finer point on my question from study session, I'm sure it's no surprise that I would like to see no wells drilled. So I want to understand, I appreciate the having fewer wells drilled that's proposed here, but if we simply vote no, if we just don't make the change, can we then just have no wells drilled?
Thank you, Councilmember Coombs, for the question. There are 4 well sites and 80 wells that are currently approved in the operator agreement. Those sites are vested to the operator, and they are able to be drilled to the extent that they wish to do so.
Okay, and then my other question is regarding the plugging of the wells. What would be the cost to the city of plugging those wells if we don't approve this and those aren't being plugged by Civitas?
Thank you for the question. You're referring to the legacy wells that are, in most cases, these wells are, or in all cases, they're already plugged, but many of them were plugged decades ago, some as many as 50 years ago. What we're finding is that 2 things, the state rules change over time. They become much more stringent. And so wells that were plugged 50 years ago no longer meet modern plugging requirements by the same state organization, by the Oil and Gas Commission. So replugging those is typically very beneficial. First of all, it prevents future leaks. Second of all, it also prevents contamination or connection with the freshwater aquifers. So it's very much to the benefit of the city, first of all, for replugging those wells. Second of all, the surface owner, once a well is plugged and the operator receives their release from the state commission, the surface owner, whoever that is, owns that wellbore. So if the operator does not plug those, then it would be required of whoever owns the surface. If it's a developer that's coming in and there's an issue with the well, they would be required to replug that at their cost.
Further questions of staff or the applicant? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Drinsky.
Motion to approve item 12B.
It's moved by Councilmember Drinsky, seconded by?
Sundberg.
Seconded by Councilmember Sundberg to approve item number 12B. Further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on the adoption of item number 12B.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Zavonic.
Yes.
Councilmember Medina.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 12B, Resolution 2023-85.
Okay. The time is now 8:06. We will take a break until 8:15. Council stands in recess.
Item 13A is introduction of ordinance 2023-31, submitting to a vote of the registered electors of the City of Aurora, Colorado at the regular municipal election of November 7th, 2023. Proposed amendments to Articles 2.2, 3.10, 3.14.4, 3.14.5, 3.14.7, 3.15.1, 3.15.3, 3.15.4, 3.16.6, 3.16.8A, 3.16.8J, 3.16.8JA, 3.17.2, 3.17.3, 5.2, 5.9, 6.5, 7.4E, 7.4F, 8.2, 10.1, 10.5, 10.8, 11.2, 11.3, 12.7, 14.9.6, and 15.9.6 of the city charter concerning non-substantive updates to the city charter to create gender neutrality by replacing all gender-specific nouns and all personal pronouns with non-gender-specific nouns, and amending Article 5.9 to incorporate direction that uniform codes adopted by the city for inclusion in the city code shall first be amended to use general neutral references to persons.
Presentation by staff. Do you want to, okay.
Sure, I'll just speak briefly if that's okay, Mayor, as a sponsor. No, that's okay. So we've had a number of discussions at this point on just the value of making sure that our charter is not specifying that any of our positions, city attorney, city manager, would belong specifically to a he, which it currently says he in relation to those positions. And also to having inclusive language to make sure that universally all people are represented by the way that the language of our primary governing document is constructed. And so I think city staff have come up with a compromise that's actually probably the clearest, most concise version of this question that's been brought forward that really does set it in accordance with legal language generally, which typically does not refer to any gender, and that also does achieve that goal of being inclusive of everyone. And I'll allow them to speak a little bit about what they've drafted.
Thank you. Andrea Wood, Assistant City Attorney. So what we did here was just take out all pronouns, just using nouns. So where city manager, it says city manager instead of he, and where it said he for city attorney, and now just says city attorney. So there will be no more pronouns in the charter at all. It will just specifically be nouns that don't address any particular gender.
And if I may add, George Kumantakis with the City Attorney's Office. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. There's one other addition where we've given, where it gives us the ability is in the City Attorney's Office, if we've missed one of the sections in this ordinance, that we can then correct that later. So if it's not listed here and we see it in the future, we'll be able to correct that also.
Questions of staff or the sponsor? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
Move to approve item 13A.
Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 13B. Discussion? Councilmember Marcano. I'm sorry, 13A? 13A. I stand corrected. Further discussion on 13A? Seeing none, question before us is adoption of item number 13A. Call for the question.
Councilmember Murillo.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Councilmember Zvonik.
Yes.
Councilmember Medina.
Yes.
The motion passes to approve item 13A, ordinance 2023-31.
Will clerk now please read the title of item 13B?
Item 13B is ordinance 2023-32, amending sections 54-133 and 54-151 of the city code pertaining to unlawful acts.
Brief presentation by staff. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. So this ordinance does two things. One, It bans the use of deceptive practices when obtaining signatures, and the definition of deceptive practices is included in the ordinance, but it's the legal definition is representations, omissions, or practices that mislead or are likely to mislead a person to obtain their signature. And there was an amendment from the last version that where either the petition gatherer or the firm that employs them could both be found to violate this. And then the other section will create a opportunity for folks that have that signed a petition to remove their name. We do not currently have a formal process for that, and so this would put that into law.
Just a question of the clerk, Katie. What is the required language on front of the petition?
So the petition requirements are outlined in section 54-142 for charter amendments. There's also a similar one for initiatives. It states, do not sign this petition unless you have read or have had read to you the proposed measure or the summary in its entirety and understand its meaning. That is on the first page in plain red letters. 10-point bold-faced type is the required type. And then you also have to have the summary and the full text of the proposed charter ordinance on the petition.
Okay. Further, I'm sorry. Motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to approve 13B.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by?
Marcano?
Seconded by Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 13B. Discussion?
Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember Cruz.
I just want to thank Councilmember Gardner for entertaining, or Mayor Pro Tem Gardner, I apologize, for entertaining the amendments and working with staff to get those added. I think it makes a stronger ordinance that I'm happy to support.
I just want to say, I don't think there's ever a substitute for having the individual signing petition not read the clerk-approved summary, which is about 3 to 4 sentences. Further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on the adoption of item number 13B.
Councilmember Murillo. Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Medina.
Yes.
Councilmember Zvonek.
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 13B, ordinance 2023-32.
Clerk, now please read the title of item number 13C.
Item 13C is ordinance 2023-35, adding a section to the city code authorizing a reserve police force. And Mayor, we do have 3 individuals from the public who would like to speak. Okay. The first person is Jackie Cordova, followed by Aaron Futrell.
Good evening, friends of the community. I am Jackie Cordova. I am a mother of Aurora. I'm here today on record in honor of Elijah McClain. On behalf of the youth, I'm obliged to show up and speak out against more outrage here. I come with a proclamation from the elders. The killers of our children are not welcome here. First of all, the biggest cover-up in human history is the mind control and lowering of our IQs due to calcification of our third eye pineal gland from the fluoride and other poisoning chemicals pumped into our drinking water, among other things. The government is a traumatizing, deadly weapon. A proposal here tonight could protect the city from any liability from its paramedics and other volunteers who carry concealed deadly weapons. 2 paramedics, Jeremy Cooper and Lieutenant Peter Kuchenik, scheduled to go on trial separately in August. A 3rd police officer, Nathan Woodyard, is set to be tried in September. All 5 already pleaded not guilty to manslaughter, criminally negligent, reckless homicide, among other charges. Now we are all aware, no guns were required for the murder of Elijah McClain. The special interests in here keep roaring their ugly head. I noticed this item for police force was placed last. This was planned. Shame on the sponsor, Danielle Jurinsky, and her trash proposal to reinstate a reserve police force, which was dissolved in 2005. I know you think this is funny, Danielle. The city council is locked up in grandstanding, from gross power grabs by Mayor Mike Kaufman, to the perpetual perpetrators in the police department who continually devise more ways to murder our own children, to cover it up, to laugh at us, to keep us in fear for our lives and our safety. You are out of touch. The only thing you have left is who you are. Do you have the integrity to stand your ground? I'm just here today as a reminder to you that your every decision is being watched, tracked, and recorded by the Creator and Mother Earth. We work for the youth of this city, not for these paid people, not for your grotesque gun lobbying, nor for your rank and file. We are also aware that satanic ceremonies will be happening worldwide tonight. Ask any priest, ask any member of the forces of law and order, and they will tell you that Satanism as such, it is there and it has been for thousands of years. They must be profane and blasphemous to be effective. This is part of the ritual and part of the belief of these people, that in order to make any kind of ceremony totally effective, it must be the exact diametrical opposite of the real ceremony. The plot is being rewritten as we speak. The old script, the old characters, and the old storylines have run their course. This show is now ending. And in the end, your records will show whose side you were on, and this was all for the children.
Aaron Futrell, followed by Tanya Tabachek.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Honorable Council. Elijah McLean, Paul Childs, he was ours, not Denver's. Don't let Denver fool you. Jordell Richardson, I'm sure APD did not intend to kill, or APD, AFD did not intend to kill any of these children. And we're still reeling, trying to build that community trust with police. There are a lot of issues with this ordinance. I get the intent. I support the intent behind the ordinance, but there are a lot of problems with the ordinance that has numerous citizens, such as myself, concerned. One, we're saying that we're not going to pay these cops, but in the ordinance, it states that there is going to be, if there is going to be a stipend that us, the citizens, or the city of Aurora, is going to pay. What is that going to cost us? There was no number attached to the ordinance. That basically is giving the cops who are the reserve cops who are recruiting the ability to basically practice lawlessness, and that's scary. Would you want that to happen to your child? Again, intent is saying you're going to do something, but not necessarily do something. The city council has gone through that in the last 2 years with a different makeup. You can tell a child to clean his room and say, "Mom, I intended to, but can I go to that movie anyway?" Basically, what I'm trying to say is you could put sunglasses on a pineapple, cape on a pineapple, but it's still a pineapple. This ordinance really doesn't have the substance that's going to give the citizens of Aurora the confidence that we need a reserve police force. I understand that there are other counties like Arapahoe County, Conifer, Jeffco, Estes Park that have reserved officers. But my concern is there's not enough substance behind this ordinance that is going to protect and build trust within the citizens of Aurora. We were once voted the #1 city to raise a family, but now families are fearful to come here because of ordinances like this. So I ask you to practice compassion and think before you vote on this.
Tanya Tabachek.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Tabachek. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, who cannot be here tonight. She just has a question regarding this ordinance. The question regarding is, what does it mean, a reserve force, and what training and education required? And also, she's for it and we're for it, and she's just saying that reserve can help as long as it's not a vigilante. So thank you.
That was the last individual.
Okay. Brief presentation by staff.
Yes, Mayor, members of council, Pete Schulte, Public Safety Client Manager of the City Attorney's Office. This is an ordinance that I know we talked about last week at study session, but this will replace or put back into the code the police reserve force that was taken out of part of the code, the massive code cleanup in 2005. I will say that this isn't something new. This isn't something that the city of Aurora or anybody at the police department or my office dreamed up. This is something that's been going on for decades, if not centuries, where there are volunteers that want to come out and help their police department. And in sense, the state of Colorado actually has statutes in place to govern the conduct of reserve police officers. An example, there's been a lot of media stories that have gone out this last week since the study session which have been entirely inaccurate on what we're doing here, what this ordinance does. For example, CRS 16-2.5-110 does not allow any city or county or the state to pay any reserve officers for the actual work. As a reserve police officer, there can be a city employee, right? If we're paying a city employee that wants to be a reserve officer with the police department, we can pay their salary, but when they go out on patrol, if they decide to do something within the policy that Chief Acevedo will set up, they can't get paid for that time. What they do on their own time is what they're doing. So this ordinance requires that a person who applies to the reserve police force goes through the same process as the lateral police department hiring, or the lateral police officer hiring process, which means everything goes up to the chief of police. The chief of police has the final say of who will be granted a commission with the city of Aurora. This also has to come following a certification by the Peace Officer Standards and Training of Colorado, the post board, where they actually still have a reserve certification, which is less training, which means these officers, if they don't have a full peace officer certification, they can't work by themselves. They have to be with the full-time officer, but it gives them the ability to protect themselves by being armed and to protect our citizens if they're out finding themselves in situations where things could happen. Now, following study session, myself and Chief Acevedo met with council members Marcano and Coombs. We added a section E just from some of the feedback that we received during study session. That what subsection E states is that, talking to Chief Acevedo, because he's been a police chief a long time, there's only certain types of people that the APD is interested in applying and being appointed as a reserve police officer, and they're listed in E1. So basically, at the time of the appointment, they must be a current city employee. They must be a person associated with the tactical medic program, whether or not a city employee. And the reason it says it that way is we have some trauma surgeons or trauma docs that are interested, that work with our SWAT team, becoming reserve officers. 3, a person who is participating in the Aurora Police Department Police Officer Cadet Program and is in good standing. The thought was that we're going to be with them for at least 2 years while they're going through school, that we may be able to get them training enough where they can get that basic reserve certification and they can start riding out, so they can kind of get a feel for what police work is like, so they don't turn down another job and they find out after we go through this process police work isn't for them. And D is a former city employee who retired in good standing and would otherwise be eligible for rehire. And finally, E, this was kind of the catch-all on anybody else who was in law enforcement for at least 5 years that wanted to get out, or they were crazy, went out and got their law degree, wanted to go practice law, but still wanted to be a police officer. So this is what that covers. Left their prior law enforcement agency in good standing, has no prior disciplinary history while working in law enforcement, officer greater than a written reprimand or similar. And finally, the caveat here is they got to be fully post-certified. They can't just have their reserve certification for that particular section. And of course, we added a term of what good standing means. It means the person left or retired from employment on their own accord, not under investigation or in lieu of termination. And I'll turn it over to Chief Acevedo to let him talk about his experience.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. Art Acevedo, Chief Police in Aurora. This program, I appreciate the concerns, and we should have concerns, because there are programs across the country that have not been well thought out, and quite honestly, they ended up being badge production lines for political cronies of elected sheriffs. I can think of one in Los Angeles in particular. But this is actually a very restrictive program that is going to focus on the right set of individuals that we would want to serve our city, that have a track record. They either have to have a career in law enforcement of, I think it was 5 or more years we put in there, or full-time law enforcement, or a retiree. And we even put a residency in there for some of the folks. So it's going to be a program that's going to give a lot to our community, but it's going to be a program that I think eventually will save lives. And if you think about just last week, just a few days ago, we celebrated or commemorated the 11th or 12th year now of our shooting here in Aurora. And so we just want to make sure that we have our medics, especially our medics program with the surgeons that want, the trauma surgeons that are associated with their program, to be able to protect themselves and others. Because a hot zone, a cool zone, a warm zone can change very quickly in a dynamic situation. I think we owe it to them and their patients to be able to defend themselves and to be properly trained. It's my understanding in the past we've allowed individuals in this program to just simply have a concealed license. And I think from a civil liability standpoint, tactical standpoint, that if we're going to have them with our folks, that they need to be trained to a higher standard. So we're actually increasing the standards for our city and our department.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. You had mentioned in the backup that you'll check on prior disciplinary background. How will you do that?
So the beauty of the post here in Colorado is they have to keep, they require every law enforcement agency to keep detailed records. Part of the extensive background process that we do on every applicant, including laterals, it means our officers go, our background investigators go to that law enforcement officer's old agency, pull their file, and look. And so we'll be able to see all the discipline that would have been in their file. If anything higher than a public or we had said, a written reprimand, they would not be eligible.
Okay, and then for the cadet program, though, they're only been in the program, I mean, they could have been less than 5 years, obviously.
So that's a separate area, Councilmember Bergen. So that would be, because we haven't started the police cadet program yet, we wanted to include that just in case that it grew into that program grew into where we could actually get our cadets reserve certification so they could start coming out and training. Of course, they'd be working with a full-time officer all the time.
So it's not, that would be down the line, not necessarily
Correct.
When we first start. Okay, and then they won't be, this person that's a reserve officer will be, I think you said, with another officer. So in terms of decision-making, how does that work in terms of commands, basically?
So I'll tell you, as somebody who, I used to be a reserve officer, what happens is that—
Were you a good one?
What's that?
Were you a good one?
Yes.
The jury's out on that still, Councilman.
So I will tell you that where the state that I came from, they didn't have separate reserve certifications. You actually had to have your full cert to work. So, but when it was a situation where we respond to a call, if I was the part-timer or I was a reserve, I'd let it's clear based on policy and procedure and training that the full-time officer's in charge. Okay. And my job is to be a backup unit to that officer who's handling the call. But what I found is when I was working, I would find some officers that I became friends with that I would like, and I'd go work with them every Friday night. We'd ride as a two-man unit. Okay, now that'd be different here with the reserve certification because they don't have the full training. But we will probably have some reserve officers that may apply that have their full basic certification that could do exactly that if they wanted to.
Thank you.
Mayor, I would anticipate some of our retirees that, you retire and you think you're ready and then you have a real deep desire to serve again. I would anticipate some of our retirees will end up wanting to serve the city that gave them a great career. And
that'd be great.
And we're limited to about 35 individuals at this time.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor.
Councilmember Lawson.
So just to follow up on Councilmember Bergen's question about the experienced officer that needs to be with the reserve person, how many years of that experience, because I'm not sure I would want someone who's just getting out of the cadet, just even 2 years to be with that person. So what are we looking at from that time frame of how much experience officers that we're talking about?
Yes, Councilmember, thank you for that question. We would be looking at either FTOs or senior officers that have, that you as a department would trust. So we would probably actually designate, so we don't have to be paying FTO pay, designate specific officers. And for me, if you're not off of probation, if you don't have at least 3 to 5 years on of active duty here, we will not consider you, because we want our more senior folks that are well experienced with a good track record to be the ones that they'd use. And the other piece, though, is also what's the mission? And if we have 35 reserves and we have a community event, sometimes folks want to have parades and neighborhood parades, and these individuals may want to help facilitate those community events, then that's a consideration. What's the mission for patrol? But when it comes to patrol itself, it'll be senior officers and FTOs that they will be partnered with.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
So I have a couple of questions related to just kind of accountability, which I know we've discussed a little bit, but I still have some concerns. How would we make sure that these are really folks that are going to engage with the community in a trustworthy manner? So, right, we are going to look at their previous civil service background if they have it. What if they don't have that background? How are we going to do background checks for non-peace officer candidates? And what kinds of requirements are we going to have in place for that kind of accountability piece?
So Councilmember Cruz, I'll tell you that there will be no difference in the hiring process for the reserve program as there are for lateral police officers or even civilians. If somebody comes in with no law enforcement experience, they'll go through the same background check that the department is now doing following hiring. Now, they're not going to be part of civil service because the charter is very clear that there's only certain officers that can be part of civil service, and reserve police officers aren't included, but it will be the same process. I've talked to Chief Acevedo about that. Obviously, there is work to be done after the ordinance passes, or if the ordinance passes, that we've got to get the policies and procedures done, and we'll be working on that at the next stage. We don't anticipate having any reserves hired for several months, if not into next year, because even if we have any paramedics that are interested, they're going to have to go through a reserve academy to be able to do that. And my understanding is there's 2 academies in the metro area that have reserve academies. We do not at the Aurora Academy right now. That could change in the future depending on what happens, but they do it during the full-time academy. So the full-time academy will have the same arrest control techniques, the same law classes, the same firearms training, the same driving training. And what they'll do is the people who are enrolled in the Reserve Academy will come to the full-time academy when those classes are being held. So what usually could take 6 weeks full-time, it could spread out over 8 months. So again, we're not seeing that we're going to have people that are eligible, unless they're retirees. Again, we may have somebody that we had an officer that had a very good change in great circumstances for him, and he decided to go be with his family and work with his family. If he wanted to stay and work, he could apply because he's fully certified.
Hey, Mayor, may I add a comment on that? For me, the best indicator of future performance is past performance. And the good thing about the retirees, we will have a performance that we can look at. And quite honestly, why would they want to do it? He mentioned I had a friend in Austin hit an $86 million lotto. I wish I had his luck, but I don't. And he retired. He was told to retire because he's going to be a target. He retired, and after about a year of probably wasting some money, he realized he wanted to serve, and he actually became a reserve in another community because he had that passion for public service. So I'm very confident that, and the other thing is you don't have a right to the job, you don't have a civil service status, so you're very much at will, and we won't have much tolerance for anybody that comes in and tries to sully the program.
Mayor.
Serve at the pleasure of the police chief. That's what's in the ordinance.
Okay,
Can I ask a further follow-up? So with that, is there any impact of not being part of civil service on either the city's liability or the individual's liability serving in that role?
No, because they don't have any I mean, it's a volunteer position. It's basically how the law looks at it in Colorado, the state statute says it is a privilege to be able to have a reserve certification held by a police department. It's not part of your job. So the reason that I know that we added some of the items in E, former employees, current employees, we have some skin in the game, right? They're current employees. If they have an issue, chief says, hey, you're not going to be reserve anymore, and then they're going to be dealing with their own director of their department as a city employee. So it's just another added layer that in there, at least through the initial 5 types of people that could apply.
Mayor, can I ask one more follow-up?
Please.
Okay, thank you. And then with the retired officers who have that basic peace officer certification, they wouldn't, by the nature of their certification, be required to be under supervision of another officer. So what is their scope and what prevents them from acting outside of that scope?
So that'll be based on policy and procedure, which they're used to following through their career with the police department. The other item is if they have been an agent and been a detective for 20 years and all of a sudden they want to be a reserve and go push a squad car, as we like to call it, there's going to be parameters that they're going to have to get through with the field training officer, make sure they're checked off and make sure they have all the training that they need to be able to work in a patrol car. Now, that'll be up to Chief Acevedo if he'll allow.
I can just tell you, as long as I'm the chief, we're not going to have them work alone.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, because by having them in the car with someone else, there's strength in numbers. If they're retired, they may not be the youngest people in the world. And secondly, you have that backup officer, and so you don't have to get a cover unit for routine stops. So it'll have the impact that we want, but without. I just feel very strongly that reserve officers, especially for the first few years, the first couple of years should be at all times with a full-time officer, and that will be our policy. I also stand committed to, when we write the policies in the upcoming weeks, we don't want to do the work unless we're going to have a program, that we will take it with the chairs, public safety chairs, support back to public safety and just have you take a look at them, so make sure everybody's comfortable before we actually start the program.
Mayor, sorry, one more follow-up. I promise this is the last one, unless you guys say something really weird in the answer.
Allegedly.
So I guess the other question about the scope is, how do we make sure that people don't try to act in the capacity of an officer at a time when they're not directed to do so by the police department if they have a full basic peace officer certification and they're in this program?
So legally, I will tell you that the reserve certification, as soon as they are no longer in the position that's approved by policy, that they're gonna know, right? They're gonna know exactly when they're able to operate as a reserve officer for the city of Aurora. They're no better than a civilian. So another police officer, another law enforcement agency is gonna look at them and go, well, wait a minute, you're a reserve officer, yet you just took police action in another city that's not bound by policy. Then they're gonna be in trouble for potentially impersonating a public servant. So that's the protection there. And then the other option, the state law does allow the police chief, for those individuals who hold full basic peace officer certifications, to be able to act as a peace officer at all times, right? Just like they were when they were full-time in the police department. But that'll be up to the policy of the police chief, and it will probably be by a person-by-person basis.
I'm sorry, I do now have a clarification. So it's possible that someone could be in this program and while not officially on duty under the direction of the chief could, or another kind of leadership, member of police leadership, that they could still say, I'm justified in acting as a police officer?
Yeah, that's called a one and done. They probably won't be wearing our uniform or be part of our program, because our policy will be very clear. But as a private citizen, not invoking your peace officer's powers as a reserve, any citizen can make a citizen's arrest. So that would be a different situation. And if they were carrying a firearm, they'd have to be following state law under that circumstance and not acting under the authority of the reserve program here in the city of Aurora.
Mayor?
Councilmember Bergen.
I know that, if they go through the post-certification program, standards and training. Does that training include all the training we do, or would they get the additional training that our officers go through, use of force, that type of thing?
Yes, so after they get their reserve certification, there's going to be additional training that the department will do on top of the post-cert. So the post-cert requires arrest control and use of force, firearms, and then Colorado law.
Okay.
And then the last part is driving, which we will have them do because it completes the process. So, and of course, they're always going to be training. I think, if we have any paramedics that are on the SWAT team, they're going to be working and training with the SWAT team, doing that process and to get additional training.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, sir. So thank you all for the presentation. So I have a couple of questions for you. So first, why was the reserve program ended in the past? I know you said it was during a code cleanup, but it's not quite as simple as that, right? Because that means that the code was not used, and I want to know why, what happened.
So back after 2001, after September 11th, I think everybody can remember that we had tons of people wanting to be police officers and firefighters and paramedics. We don't have that right now. So what happened was, I think there was just a loss of interest. Most people were quitting their jobs if they had a high-paying job and they wanted to go be a police officer. And so it just dwindled down. My understanding from talking to some older heads at the police department, it just got dwindled down to not many. And at the time, in 2005, it was only till about 5 or 6 years ago that APD wasn't fully staffed. And so it wasn't an issue. And now it's coming up again as an issue for potential.
Okay, thank you for that. Second question is, who covers liability if one of our volunteers is injured?
So as long as they're working within their scope of their policy and employment, right? Employment's a term that they're volunteers, but they are working with, state law requires us to cover if they get injured, workers' compensation, and then we will do the evaluation on like any other officer. There's a use of force, right, that we receive a lawsuit on. We'll do every other evaluation, talking with the chiefs, talking with city management, talking with my boss about what we do in that regard. Most times, we're going to cover their costs just like we do any other officer, unless we find that they were not acting in good faith.
Okay, and a follow-up to that, how would workers' comp work for a volunteer?
So we would pay for their medical and their doctor. They wouldn't get any past wages, but they would be able to get their medical and everything else paid for if they chose. Now they could use their own private insurance, but we have, by state statute, we have to offer that just because of the nature of the work.
All right. Two more, Mayor, sorry.
Please proceed.
Thank you. So, I know you mentioned it already, but there's, I guess, a prohibition in state statute that keeps us from compensating volunteer officers. And I kind of have an issue with that because what we're discussing really is like a part-time officer, right? People who want to do this as well as whatever else they're doing. So why, do you have an idea of why that was put into state statute? Like how long ago was that put into state statute?
Yes, sure. So what was happening is back when that was put into statute, this one only Colorado this was happening. So since they had the reserve certification, what you found was that these smaller cities would have these officers go through a 6-week academy, 20 or 30 years ago, and then they put them in a squad car and say, congratulations, you're one of our town's police officers. And so they were circumventing the post-training requirement. Instead of making the full-time police officers paid go through the full academy, they were shortening it to the reserve academy, and they said, we're not doing that anymore. Now, could we have part-time police officers in the city of Aurora? Sure. First of all, we'd have to get approval from you all, but second of all, they'd have to have their full basic peace officer certification. That's the caveat.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Further questions? Afraid to ask. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Jurenski.
motion to approve item 13C.
Moved by Councilmember Jurenski, seconded by Councilmember Sundberg to approve item number, 15C. I'm sorry, 13C. Further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on the adoption of item number 13C.
Councilmember Murillo?
No.
Councilmember Zvonek?
Yes.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 13C, ordinance 2023-35, with one no vote from Councilmember Murillo.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 15A.
Item 15A is consideration of ordinance 2023-33, annexing a parcel of land located in the south one half of the southwest quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 2, Township 6 South, Range 66 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Douglas, State of Colorado.
Brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Jacob Cox, Manager of Office of Development Assistance. A petition for this annexation was filed with the city clerk for the annexation of a 20-acre parcel owned by the Prusy Land Company in Douglas County, generally located northeast of E470 and Parker Road. There's a vicinity map in your backup materials. Council made a finding of substantial compliance on the petition on May 22nd of this year. The annexation process follows state law, and this is the third of the 3 council meetings. Tonight's agenda, the third meeting in which council considers the annexation for the final reading in terms of the ordinance and the industrial zoning ordinance, and we'll introduce a motion for the approval of the agreement. I do not have a separate presentation by the outside representatives. I'm happy to answer questions.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to approve 15A.
Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Bergen.
Councilmember Bergen to approve item number 15A. Discussion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of item number 15A. Call for the question.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes.
Councilmember Zvonek?
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 15A, ordinance 2023-33.
Will clerk now please read the title of item number 15B?
Item 15B is consideration of ordinance 2023-27, zoning a parcel of land measuring 20 acres more or less near the northeast corner of East Spur Lane and Pine Drive to low-density single-family residential zone district and amending the zoning map accordingly.
Brief presentation by staff.
This is in conjunction with the annexation ordinance. This is the initial zoning of the parcel. It follows a residential zoning for low-density residential in the area and does follow a comprehensive plan.
Cool. Questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor?
Councilmember Jaworski.
No, me.
Councilmember Bergen.
A motion to approve 15B.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bergen, seconded by
Sundberg.
Councilmember Sundberg to approve item number 15B. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 15B. Call for the question.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 15B, ordinance 2023-27.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 15C.
Item 15C is consideration of an annexation agreement between the City of Aurora, Colorado and Prusy Land Company.
Brief presentation by staff.
So this is in conjunction with the ordinances we just passed. This is the annexation agreement for this property. It does follow entirely the city's model annexation agreement, which is our current policy. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions of staff?
Mayor?
Councilmember Bergen.
Thank you. So this is the annexation agreement we have always used for a number of years, correct?
Yes, and we do update the agreement when we catch things in terms of updating it for current codes.
Which brings me to my question. So I had a situation a couple years ago with a school district where we were dedicating land due to the agreement, and they did dedicate the land, and then the district deemed the land not necessary for a school, so they ended up putting it on the market, so on and so forth. So in this and that, not just school district land dedication, but anything like parks and so forth, have we changed any of that criteria?
That has not, it won't be an issue on this one because there's not a school site to be dedicated within this master plan based on the size of the master plan. Okay. However, they'll pay cash in lieu to the school district. I think Douglas County is the referral agency on this one. We've not, but that is on our radar to change this year as kind of a proactive measure. it is something we're looking at and how to do that in terms of maybe it going back to the city, for example, as a protection.
So we could do that later if we found that we needed to change the cash in lieu on any of those.
It's what we were looking at is more of a policy discussion on how do we approach that to prevent that from happening in terms of them having to work with the city as well on the dedication piece as part of the master plan process, but that's not something we've solidified.
Okay, and this parcel is part of that the larger master plan for that Kings Point South. So in the master plan, they would have to have, like, for example, parks.
They do have parks, yes.
But this small parcel may not need one because of the fact that they're within the big master plan, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct. And actually, the overall, I did look at the land use table for the overarching master plan. It's about 100 acres, and I do not believe there's a school site within that plan.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor?
Councilmember Bergen?
Motion to approve 15C.
Moved by Councilmember Bergen, seconded by?
Mayor, second.
Seconded by Councilmember Lawson to approve item number 15C. Discussion? Seeing no further discussion, question before us is the adoption of item number 15C. Call for the question.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 15C.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 17A.
Item 17A is consideration to appoint one member to the Civil Service Commission.
Mayor,
Councilmember Sundberg.
I move to appoint Patricia Steffens to the Aurora Civil Service Commission.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by Councilmember Zvonek. Discussion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to appoint Paul Poole to the Civil Service Commission.
Second?
Substitute has been moved by Councilmember Coombs and seconded by Councilmember O'Connell. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, sir. While I believe that our candidate pool was much stronger this go-round than our previous one, I feel that both Sergeant Poole and Don Lewis demonstrated more of an understanding about the consent decree and a lot more about the role of the Civil Service Commission than the other applicant did. So I would strongly encourage my colleagues to support Sergeant Poole.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Coombs substitute motion. Would the clerk please? Is there further discussion? Seeing none, then call for the question on the Coombs substitute motion.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes no.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
No.
Councilmember Sundberg? The motion does not pass with 4 yes votes, 7 no votes. The no votes from Councilmember Zvonek, Lawson, Mayor Kaufman, Councilmember Bergen, Mayor Pro Tem Gardner, Councilmember Drinsky, and Councilmember Sundberg.
We are now back to the this is Zvonek motion?
Sundberg.
Sundberg motion. Discussion on the Sundberg motion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Sundberg motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Medina?
No.
Councilmember Murillo?
No.
Councilmember Sundberg? Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
The motion passes with 7 yes votes, 4 no votes from Councilmember Medina, Marcano, Coombs, and Murillo.
Reports. Reports by the mayor. I was able to, the weekend before last, do a ride-along in District 1 with Samson, Fitera. I was hoping to pronounce that right. He is Ethiopian descent, extraordinary officer in District 1, then Gavin Roberts in District 2 this last Saturday. Prior to that, we had a promotion, a pretty large promotion ceremony for Aurora Fire Rescue here in the chambers on Friday, I believe it was Friday evening, and officers promoted engineer to lieutenant captain and battalion chief. Then Camp Spark on Saturday morning. For those of you that might have stopped by there, I did. It's a extraordinary program by Aurora Fire Rescue for young women who might have some interest in the fire service, and it's actually 2 overnights. It starts at Friday afternoon. It's at Capstick, goes all the way through Saturday, then till Sunday afternoon. Just an amazing program, and thank all the firefighters who helped in that. Then on Saturday afternoon, evening, I went out with Patrol Officer Gavin Roberts, another extraordinary officer in District 2. Been viewing different courts just to try to work with the presiding judge to see if we can come up with a court to handle low-level offenses for those experiencing homelessness. And so I watched the proceeding in the Boulder court, in Denver's outreach court, and we'll soon be going to Lakewood to watch their court. They'll all have specialized courts for those experiencing homelessness. That's all for my report. Councilmember Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. The first report I'll give is for the Federal, State, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. The federal appropriations process for congressionally directed spending projects is moving forward, and all 4 city projects have passed through the Appropriations Subcommittee to receive funding. There is still a long process to go before funding is finalized, but this is a positive step forward. As a reminder, the projects include 9-mile pedestrian bridge project, the Central Library remodel project, the water line replacement project, the pressure regulating valve improvement project. In Colorado, several bills will go into effect August 7th, including the city-supported legislation, Move Over or Slow Down Stationary Vehicle. House Bill 231123 would require a motor vehicle driver to move to 1 lane apart from any public utility vehicle that has its hazard lights on. The City Intergovernmental Relations website is being revamped, and Phase 1 of the project is complete. It is encouraged for everyone to see the changes made so far. I want to thank Liz for working on this, and if there's any suggestions from council on the webpage, I would ask that you please provide that information. Last week, I did 2 proclamations readings for the 84th Association Business and Professional Women's Club. It was at the Hyatt, so that was very good to experience that and actually give those proclamations. And Mayor, that's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
No report.
Councilmember Jurenski.
No report.
Councilmember Zvonek.
No report.
Let's see, Councilmember Murillo.
No report.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Thank you, sir. If you haven't seen the Benson Hotel yet in the Fitzsimmons Innovation Campus, it is first class, made with the highest quality materials, great woodworking, quality stonework, and incredible art. I would encourage you all to go have a cocktail at one of their 2 bars.
Right.
The acting city manager and myself headed east to the town of Bennett of 3,500 people now.
Thanks for doing
and got a state of the town address. They're doing innovative things with water. Marshall Brown, they're doing innovative things with water there. It was a great time. The 720 memorial event, I volunteered and served 75 breakfasts to the 5K run and other volunteers for the Chalk and Beer Festival. It was a very positive event. The mayor and I were at the Aurora Armed Forces Treatment Court today to see the graduation of one gal who's 1 year sober. Formerly 1 year ago, she was living under a tree. And now she is sober and has a great apartment and a great job at a hotel. We visited with Councilmember Jurenski and candidate John O'Scott, the Shamrock Distribution Center, 1.1 million square feet, 85% automated. I'd like to thank Councilmember Woman Danielle Jurenski for covering for me at my town hall in which I had to have a wedding. If any of you ward members need a substitute to fill in for you, she's the right person for the job. Councilmember Marcano, she'd be great at your town hall. Ellen Wu would be just delighted, I'm sure. Let's see, National Night Out is tomorrow, everybody. Go to a park and support the cops. And Shop with a Cop is this Saturday. Hopefully the media will be there and actually cover something positive for a change. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, my town hall will be this Wednesday, August 2nd, 6:30 to 8 at the Active Adult Center, which will be talking about traffic calming and neighborhood resources. I also went to the Spark ceremony, actually, as well as the training on Sunday with Councilmember Coombs, who was there as well. And yeah, it's a great program. I think, we need to see more of that, helping to train some of our young women to potentially be firefighters, but also looking at ways to help with self-esteem, working as teams, and things of that nature. I will be at the event tomorrow at Fletcher Plaza from 4 to 8 for the National Night Out. So hopefully you'll come out and support it. Thank you.
Wow. Councilmember O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor. Our August 10th Ward 4 Town Hall is going to be canceled this coming month due to the governor having a listening session in Aurora on that same night. That's going to be on August 10th from 5:45 to 7:30, and the public is invited to attend. So I'll post the sign-up link as soon as it is made available. Our September meeting is going to be on Vision Zero and making our arterials safer. I'm sure you all have seen the coverage in the news that we've had a record number of fatalities on our arterials here in Aurora, and of course this is a nationwide issue as well. So we'll be discussing how we can make our streets safer for everybody. So hope to see you all then.
Councilmember Coombs.
Thank you, Mayor. So for August, my town hall on the 15th was rescheduled to the 22nd to avoid a conflict with the Aurora Water Tour. So that'll be August 22nd at 6 p.m. at Heather Gardens, and the subject will be public safety. Chief Otten and either Chief Acevedo or another APD leader will be in attendance. The August 19th Saturday meeting also had to be rescheduled to avoid a conflict with Global Fest, so it will now be held on September 16th, and the topic will be safe streets, including arterials and traffic calming, as well as multimodal transportation. And then my September 12th meeting will be a candidate forum for mayor at large and Ward 5 candidates. So I will get invites out to all of the candidates in advance of that meeting. And then I think I attended pretty much all of the things that my colleagues mentioned, as well as the county fair, which was wonderful as always. And Ellis definitely convinced me to impulse buy some things for them at that. Councilmember Marcano and I also were able to go to Bennett for the AdCog dinner, which was just really wonderful to see Bennett hosting that event, to learn more about their city, and also have conversations with our other local governments that are in Adams County. And I did run some of the 725K. I did not only walk it this year, so that was fun. And finally, well, not finally, I attended the SEIU Kaiser informational picket. So our healthcare provider, as the city, is in negotiations with their employees, and those negotiations are not going well. So we should support those employees, unions for all. And finally, Aurora Pride will be this coming Saturday, August 5th, noon to 7 p.m. for the main event, but if you want to come early and have a little picnic on the beach, there are early access tickets available from 8 a.m. to noon as well. And there's beachfront parking that you can pay for, as well as cabanas still available. And you can find all that information at aurorapride.com. And that's it.
Councilmember Bergen.
Thank you, Mayor. I also attended the County Fair Boots Not Suits event, very fun. The Benson Hotel grand opening is amazing, and I would encourage you to visit. The bar is very nice. I had my town hall, so I want to thank all the presenters that were there. Omar Montgomery, we had also Bob Oliva from retail in the city, and then also we had a presentation from DOLA on the Ridgeview project. And then Meetings this week, I've had AEDC Executive Board, ARDA, and then opioid meeting as well. So, and then met with the Salvation Army last week as well, just to learn more about what they do and their vision. That's it. Thank you.
Seeing no further business before the Aurora City Council meeting adjourned.